Okay, I call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's June 16, 2021 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body, this meeting of the Great Barrington Select Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and our parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we're unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio, video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. As you can see, the select board, three of us are in person, kind of testing out the camera and microphone capabilities to get ready for when the public is allowed. We're going to have hybrid meetings, both allowing the public to view or to come to the meeting by their choice. Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. The beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. This meeting is being recorded by CTSB, by the town, by the Berkshire Edge, and some members of the public. Any member wishing to, the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. If you're following along on our agenda, I'm going to move around a little bit tonight to allow, especially licenses and permits, to move ahead of the presentation, because the presentation may take a little while, and that'll allow people who have other things to do those things. So we'll start with the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of March 8th, April 12th, and May 10th.
Second.
So I have a motion by Lee and a second by Ed. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all votes in these types of meetings are roll call. Garfield? You're muted, Garfield.
Oh, this is the ones he wasn't at, right?
Yes.
That's right. I was not at these. So
you're going to abstain on these. Okay. Eric?
I will also abstain.
Ed?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And aye. It's unanimous, 3 votes, 2 abstentions. Next motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of May 12th and May 24th.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Garfield? Eric?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Select board's announcements or statements. Garfield?
nothing at the moment.
Thank you very much. Eric?
Nothing, thank you.
Ed?
Yeah, quick announcement. The downtown Great Barrington Cultural District, which I serve on as representative of the select board in the town, is co-hosting Art Week Berkshire, September 16th to 26th. And they've put out a call to artists, cultural organizations, anyone who wants to participate during that 10-day period. It's really a way to help publicize all the artistic and cultural things going on, street festivals, performances, exhibits. So if you are an artist or a cultural venue, reach out to me and I'll tell you how to sign up for it. It just really just brings you a lot of publicity. If you're a journalist, reach out to me and I will let you know more about it. And you can find me through the town's website.
Thank you very much. Lee?
I had the honor of presenting David Grover an award for his 40 years performing at the Great Barrington Bandstand. I was there with our representative Smitty Pignatelli, and I just want to say a big thank you to Lee Rogers for his work on the Cultural Council, and to especially David Grover. He's really been such a beacon of hope and laughter and music for 40 years in Great Barrington. So I just want to mention that. And the other thing I'd like to mention is that I was probably like many of you on the board, went down to Great Barrington and saw the Berkshire Busk and was walking around this past weekend. We luckily had wonderful weather. So Berkshire Busk will be continuing to take place throughout the month of July and August. So I recommend everyone to head down there Friday and Saturday nights from 6 to 8:30. And also with David Grover, he's going to be continuing to play on Saturday mornings through the month of July and August. So head down every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. at the bandstand.
Thank you, Lee. I have nothing. We're going to skip down to licenses and permits. First one is Patrick Hollenbeck, Board of Library Trustees, for 9 one-day beer and wine licenses for Saturday Film Series at 231 Main Street, Great Barrington, on the first Saturday of every month, beginning in September 2021 and ending in May 2022, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to grant a nine one-day beer and wine licenses for the Saturday Film Series to Pat Hollenbeck and the Board of Library Trustees. The first Saturday of every month, beginning September 2021 and ending May 2022 from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.
I'll second it, and I also need to say I filled out a conflict of interest or appearance of a conflict form. I'm the president of the Friends of the Library, which is co-sponsoring, though I don't get compensated, and they don't make money on this, so I can continue.
Patrick, you're on the line. Is there anything you want to add?
You know what? This is a great event, much loved by the community, especially in the wintertime. And we obviously had a big hiatus last year, so we're really looking forward to this coming back. And if you haven't been down there for one of these, it's really worth going to. That's it. It's great. We have our you have our full support on this.
Hey, Patrick, any questions from the board? Seeing none, a roll call vote. Garfield?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Sophia Vanaglu, Fairview Hospital's Monster Dash 5K, permission to use town roads on Saturday, October 30th, 2021 from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I will also state that I am an employee of the hospital. There's no financial gain from this, and I will be voting on it. Sophia, is there anything you want to add to it?
No, I don't think so. We're, like everyone else, really excited to be back and doing this in person. So we're always looking for runners and walkers, and we hope that this is going to be a great success and the proceeds will go to the food pantry. That's
terrific. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to grant permission to Sophia Veneglu of Fairview Hospital's Monster Dash 5K, permission to use town roads on Saturday, October 30th, 2021 from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Second.
So I have a motion by Lee and I have a second by Ed. Any questions from the board? Roll call. Garfield?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Thank you, Sophia.
Thanks a lot.
Howard Jacobs for a driveway permit at 38 Blue Hill Drive to access 40 Blue Hill Drive. Is someone on the line?
I don't see anyone, but there is an HWJ. So
is there anyone on the line for this permit? I'm not too worried about it if there's not. But... So do I have a motion?
I make a motion to grant a driveway permit to Howard Jacobs at 38 Blue Hill Drive to access 40 Blue Hill Drive.
Second. And I have a question or
okay.
two. The fire department had some concerns. I assume the fire department didn't say no, but just with the slope of the driveway.
The chief's on the line if you want to ask.
Oh, yeah, he had a recommendation. I assume that it's not in the permit, but should it be?
Well, okay, Chief on. Chief Berger, can you have some recommendations on this one?
Yes, I'm sorry. Which one is it?
This is Howard Jacobs. It's on Blue Hill.
Yes, I think they're showing a 12% grade on that, which is not really accessible for our fire trucks and not even an ambulance, depending on the time of year. So I have no jurisdiction in the fire code with regards to that, but practically it doesn't work.
Okay, is there someone on the line, if you could raise your hand, who is representing Howard Jacobs, or Howard Jacobs is on the line? Yeah, there's a hand. Twice it's gone up. It's HWJ.
It is, okay.
Yes.
Just go ahead and put it on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, just state your name, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Howard Jacobs. I'm the owner of the property.
Okay, and did you hear what Chief Berger had to say about the 12-foot grade?
12%.
I heard what he said about a portion of it being a 12% grade. Now, Matt Punton, who's not on the line, but I can get him on the line if you'd like to speak with him, is the engineer, and I believe he noted, I don't have it in front of me, that it was a small portion of it that was that grade.
He did note that.
He did note that, but
I believe, and my understanding is that I'd be able to add gravel, which I intend to do anyway, because that entire road is going to be re-graveled. So I know that the contractor I've spoken to says that he'd be able to smooth a big section of that grade once they are building the road.
so if you want to get Matt on the line,
I can do that. I can do that.
yourself, and we're going to move ahead to the next one, and then we'll go back to you.
Okay, could I have him just join into the Zoom call, and then you'll...
Please. Or you can do it by phone, whichever he prefers.
All right, I will. Okay, I'll get in touch with him right now. Thank you.
Thank you. So then, Lee, will you just withdraw the motion? Ed, withdraw the second.
Yes.
I withdraw the motion.
So we'll move on while he's getting Matt on the line. This is Stephen Lee for a driveway permit at 168 Christian Hill. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept, to grant a driveway permit to Stephen Lee at 168 Christian Hill Road.
Second.
So I have a motion by Lee and a second. Is there any questions?
No.
Any board members with questions or members of the public? Seeing none, roll call. Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. And the last one, before we go back, Tasia Giles of Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival for 2 one-day Sunday entertainment licenses on August 1st, 2021 from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. and August 8th, 2021 from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 334 Main Street, park and parking lot. Do you want to just give us an explanation of what's happening, a little publicity?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everyone. This is a free 45-minute pop-up performance. We are calling these Jacob's Pillow on the Road, and we're traveling to Beckett, Great Barrington, North Adams, and Pittsfield over these 2 weekends, offering pop-up performances. August 1st will be the Ladies of Hip Hop, a Los Angeles-based intergenerational hip hop troupe. And August 8th is Kulu Mele African Dance and Drum Ensemble from Philadelphia, and they will be joined by Berkshire County Dance Studios as the opening act. And this is set on a portable stage that Jacob's Pillow's staff will be constructing during pre-show, and then post-show will be striking the day of. And that's hence the length of time that we are requesting to occupy the space. But the actual performances are 45 minutes, free and open to everybody. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to grant Fasaya Giles of Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival 2 one-day Sunday entertainment licenses on August 1st, 2021 from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. and August 8th, 2021 from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 334 Main Street.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just think it's a great thing that you're doing. I love what you're presenting. I support it wholeheartedly.
Oh, thank you so very much. Thank you.
So roll call vote, Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Jeff is speaking.
Okay. Let me just see if Matt's on the line first. Oh, do I really? I don't see him. Okay. Next, we'll go, before we go back to the driveway permit, motion to open the public hearing for Shack Down, DBA 20 Railroad Public House, 20 Railroad Street, change of manager on their all alcoholic restaurant liquor license from Ben Downing to Jeff Caminiti. Motion?
Yes, I make a motion to open the public hearing of Shack Down Incorporated, change of manager on their alcoholic restaurant license, liquor license from Ben Downing to Jeffrey Caminiti.
Reopen.
Yeah.
Oh,
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, you're on the line. I'm sorry for the confusion that we may have had at the last meeting. Here now, do you have anything you want to add to this? Jeff, you're unmuted. Before we take up too much time, does anybody have any questions?
No.
I guess I took over. Unmuted.
Jeff, you're fading in and out. We can't hear you. I think we just lost him. No one had, did anybody have any questions?
No.
So do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the change of manager on the all alcoholic restaurant liquor license from Ben Downing to Jeffrey Caminiti of Shakedown Incorporated, doing business as 20 Railroad Public House.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Lee, a second from Ed. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And aye. It's unanimous. Mr. Jacobs, were you able to get hold of Matt?
We've unmuted it on our end.
Yeah. So.
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Were you able to get hold of Matt?
Unfortunately, no. He might be out of range because I've tried his phone. He said he would be available. Is it possible to come back to a little later? I will.
Yeah, you're probably going to have to wait a while, but we will come back to you.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll be happy to wait, as I definitely will get him on though, so I'll alert him to that fact.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the town manager's report, and Mark, go right ahead.
Okay, thanks, Steve. First up for tonight is an update and a presentation by AECom, which is one of our two engineering firms hired by the town to study the Housatonic Waterworks system. They're here. I think we have 3 representatives from AECom on the line tonight. They're going to present a summary of their 218-page report, and that report was posted on our website last week, so I hope everyone had a chance to take a look at it. Next meeting, our July 26th meeting, we'll be hearing from DPC Engineering, and they'll be their report at that time. So just a few reminders about Housatonic Waterworks and what's happening and why this evening. Housatonic Water Works remains a privately owned public water supply. I know that can be hard to wrap your head around, but that is in fact the situation we have here. It's regulated by DPU and DEP, not by the town and the local Board of Health. And the reason we've hired these two firms is to be able to provide the regulatory authorities, DPU and DEP, with a copy of our findings, and also to be able to advocate for our village residents that are served by the system. Housatonic Water Works charter, 97 or something like that, late 1800s, includes a provision that allows the town to acquire it. So if we do move in that direction, this will help inform our decisions and our discussions going forward. And lastly, I just wanted to remind everyone before we move on to the presentation that there really is no quick, easy fix here. And after our presentations conclude, I fully expect that the select board will schedule a meeting to discuss what the next steps might look like and what path we're headed down. So please be patient with us. We're doing the best we can, and I'm really excited to be at this point tonight where we're hearing from the first of our engineers. So I'll pass it over to them now.
Yeah. Let me just say that so we have 66 people on the line, 60 attendees. And what's going to happen is after the presentation, the select board will ask questions specifically about the presentation. The public will be allowed to ask questions specifically about the presentation. As Mark said, at our next meeting, we'll have another report. We'll do the same thing. And then we'll schedule a meeting to have a discussion about where we go from there. Tonight's the beginning of the journey, or the journey started a long time ago, but we're still in the infancy, and we're gonna have at least 2 reports, and then we will have a discussion. We will not, unfortunately, be solving anything tonight, but we're on the road to doing that. So go right ahead. I have given permission to everyone, I think.
Were they promoted to panelists? Or
no, I think I gave permission
to change their roles.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Just so they can share.
Can we see them, or is that?
Recording in progress.
Okay. All right. Hold on a second, get a little computer. There we go. All right, sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Doug Gove. I'm a project manager with AECom. And tonight I am joined by Brian Sadowski, one of our water engineers, along with Lyndall Wilnow, our hydraulic modeling specialist, and Bill Clooney, our treatment specialist. So tonight, as Mark mentioned, we're gonna walk through the report. We're gonna try to provide a brief overview, and then as mentioned, we can answer questions at the end if there are any. So what we wanna talk about really is we're just gonna give a quick intro to the project. We'll talk a little bit about some of the details of the water system, the water supply, water demand. We'll talk about the water treatment plant. We'll go into some detail on the water quality entering and leaving the plant. We'll talk about the drinking water regulations and how Housatonic Water Works complies with those. We'll discuss the operations of the distribution system. And then we'll talk about, based on all that, we'll summarize what our recommendations are and present a capital improvement plan for what we believe is necessary to update the system. All right. So quick intro, Housatonic Water Works Company provides water to 824 services and serves a population of approximately 1,400 residents. And this covers, in addition to Great Barrington, the village of, which is considered the village of Housatonic. It also covers Stockbridge and West Stockbridge. And if you can look over here on the map, you can see there is an area here in the southeast corner of West Stockbridge, and then the southwest corner of Stockbridge. that the water distribution system extends up into. There is one surface water supply that provides the source, which is Long Pond Reservoir. There's one treatment plant and one finished water storage tank. As far as water supply, I mentioned Long Pond Reservoir. It's the only water supply for Housatonic Water Works Company. The reservoir has a safe yield of approximately 0.6 million gallons per day and an authorized withdrawal volume under the Water Management Act of 0.27 million gallons per day. The reservoir is naturally formed except for its southernmost section, which was excavated as part of an expansion of the dam back in 1902. And there are no other connections to the Housatonic Water Works Company water distribution system there as far as any potential interconnections, as far as if there was an emergency at some point down the road. As far as water demand, the water demand has been pretty consistent over the last 5 years or so. The average is about somewhere in the around 170,000 gallons per day. And the maximum day, so the highest amount of water they've put out in one day over the last 5 years is about 300,000 gallons. The treatment plant itself was constructed in 1939 at the southern point of Long Pond. It utilizes a slow sand filtration process, which is a long-established treatment process that's still widely used. And the treatment plant was upgraded in 1997, which included the construction of a chlorine contact tank, as well as a new 1 million gallon storage tank at the treatment plant site. This is just a schematical diagram of the treatment plant. You have your reservoir right here. There are 2 intakes located in the reservoir, which then either flow by gravity or are pumped into the 2 slow sand filter units. From there, the water flows into the chlorine contact tank, where chlorine is added, sodium hypochlorite just upstream. And from there, it's pumped to the 1 million gallon storage tank, from there it flows by gravity into the water distribution system. I'm gonna now turn it over to Brian so he can talk about the water quality.
So as part of this evaluation, we looked at the raw and treated water quality of the Housatonic water, the Long Pond water treatment plant. On the raw water side, this is kind of a summation of the data that was provided. Just to go over a couple quick terms here, the MCL is the maximum contaminant level. That is the maximum threshold that's set by the EPA. So this is a federally established limit. These regulations need to be met, as well as an SMCL, which is a secondary maximum contaminant level, which is, they're considered more aesthetic limits. They are guidelines set by the EPA, but they are not federally enforceable. The really only thing to point out from this table is that you can see a lot of the compliance values on the right side of this table, and the average and maximum in most cases are met. So generally the water that's coming from Long Pond is very good quality of water. This is more the on the treated water side. This is a lot of the data that was provided. So this is what's coming out of the Long Pond water treatment plant. Something to point out here is separate from the MCL, the turbidity standard that's set by the surface water treatment rule, which is another law set by the EPA. The slow sand filtration process needs to meet a turbidity of less than or equal to 1.0 NTU and at least 95% of measurements, and the maximum turbidity must never exceed 5. The table here shows that the average turbidity and even the maximum turbidity is below that 1 maximum contaminant level compliance value, so it meets the turbidity standard. Another thing to point out here is looking at the manganese value on this table, you see the maximum is 0.095. This is based on the data we received, and they did get some manganese levels that were above the SMCL of 0.05. So that's just worth noting on this table. Just looking at the effluent coming out of the water treatment plant from a regulatory compliance standpoint. So like I mentioned, the surface water treatment rule also dictates how much there needs to be in terms of removal of pathogens such as Giardia and viruses. This rule is based on disinfection requirements and then other turbidity removal criteria that I kind of touched on earlier. So like I said, this is current, they do meet their turbidity standard, which grants them some credit in terms of their regulatory compliance. This compliance in terms of pathogen removal is based on a credit removal. The surface water treatment rule requires a 3 log removal of Giardia and a 4 log removal of viruses. Revisions to this same rule now require a 2 log removal of cryptosporidium. These are just basically credits that are used to determine whether a treatment system can meet those kind of pathogen removal or inactivation. The process, the slow sample filtration process used at the Long Pond water treatment plant is granted some kind of removal credits based on meeting that turbidity standard. And the remaining log removal credits are achieved by the Clarewell, their chlorine contact basin, which Doug mentioned, which is just a tank which exposes effluent from the plant to chlorine to achieve further disinfection. And I'll go over those credits in a second. So this table summarizes their log removal credits. Like I said, from the slow sand filtration process, they're granted 2 log removal of viruses and Giardia and cryptosporidium, assuming they meet that turbidity standard. And then the remaining 2 log removal viruses and 1 log removal of Giardia are met by achieving certain chlorine contact in the chlorine contact basin. So they do meet all of those requirements of the surface water treatment rule. Some other rules that we looked at are particularly the lead and copper rule. This is another pretty important rule set out by the EPA. This is largely due to largely distribution system water quality standards that public water systems need to meet. As part of the original rule, there's an action level of 0.015 milligrams per liter for lead and 1.3 milligrams per liter for copper. These standards are MCOs. They are enforceable, and there needs to be a sampling of distribution system in order to make sure you're still in compliance. As part of revisions that are currently ongoing to the lead and copper rule, there's going to be or proposed a 0.01 trigger level for lead. So that just another red flag for future lead violations. Showing these two figures that are shown are summary of the lead and copper sampling that has taken place over in the Housatonic system from 2016 to 2020. As you can see, there's not been exceedance of the action level of lead since 2017, and there hasn't been exceedance of the action level for copper since 2018. So for the past 3 years, they have met that standard for lead and copper. The last regulatory rule we really wanted to highlight was the disinfection byproducts rule. This is a rule which also monitors distribution system water quality that looks at the formation of disinfection byproducts. Disinfection byproducts are one of a few chemicals that are monitored by the EPA, total trihalomethanes and haloacetic acids. These are compounds that are formed when organics leaving the treatment plant have time to react to the chlorine and they form more harmful contaminants. So the EPA sets an MCO for the THMs of 80 micrograms per liter and a haloacetic acid limit of 60 micrograms per liter. This graph shows that the sampling that takes place in the Housatonic system has met that goal since 2018. They had some exceedances in 2018 for both THMs and HAAs. And then there was another exceedance in early 2019 for HAAs. But since then, the disinfection byproducts have been below the limit. And now Doug's going to take over again and talk more about the distribution infrastructure itself.
Thanks, Brian. So as part of our task, we developed a hydraulic model of the existing water distribution system. And this really allowed us to do a deep dive into how it was performing from a capacity and from a pressure standpoint. The system itself consists mostly of cast iron mains that are in the 4-inch to 8-inch diameter range. As you can see from the chart below, 25% of the mains are 6-inch, 28% are 8-inch, 22% are 4-inch, and then 9% are, 22% are 4-inch, and then 9% are 2-inch. So the mains are on the smaller side. Anything less than 8 inches is considered small. Right now, if you were to put a new water main in, anything that does provide fire protection has to be a minimum of 8 inches. So keep that in mind. That's going to be a theme going forward as we look at the results. As far as materials, 70% are cast iron. Most of those are likely unlined cast iron. And then another 13% is asbestos cement. And then another 13 is ductile iron. The ductile iron would reflect the newer pipe materials that have been put in over the years. This here just shows a breakdown of where the different materials are in the system. The water treatment plant is located in the bottom left corner of the screen, and you can see leaving the plant there is 12-inch cast iron main. So a lot of the infrastructure on the south part of town is cast iron. And then you can see areas where there's a bluer color, which would represent newer sections of main that have been put in over the years. That's the ductile iron. So for the model itself, we ran it under different scenarios. We used an existing average day demand. Average day demand is what the average demand is on the system for a 1-year period. And then max day would be the single highest amount of water put into the system on a given day. So for the existing conditions, we looked at an average demand of about 210,000 gallons per day and a maximum day of around 300,000 gallons. I just want to point out that those numbers were based on 2014 demands. That happens to be the data set that we had where we could actually look at past water use records and input on specific users in the system. If anything, these numbers are considered probably conservative compared to the current demands, which are probably down in the 170, 180,000 gallons per day. We also looked at a future scenario where the average demand increased to say 270,000 gallons per day and a max demand of about 390,000 gallons. So both of those. But in the whole scheme of things, those numbers are all really close. And you'll see as we look at the results that whether it's the existing average day or future max, when looking at the available fire flows and pressures in the system, it really doesn't make a difference because those flows are so close together. These figures here show what system pressures are. What it really shows is that, and it's probably hard to see, but this basically shows that for the most part, most areas in town under static conditions, so average or max day conditions with no fire flow, that they do meet DEP's requirements of 40 PSI pressure. So from that standpoint, there is adequate pressure in the system under both average and max day conditions. And that's predominantly because of the 1 million gallon storage tank that was put in back in 1997. That's providing really the elevation, the hydraulic grade line for the distribution system. So that tank, that level in that tank sets the pressure for the rest of the system. So I guess what I'm showing here is there are no reds and very little yellows, which would be the lower end of the pressure. There's a lot of green, blues, and I guess that's a purple. So which is good. Now what we did is we added a 500 gallon per minute fire flow. So we assumed that there was a fire at different points in the system at one of the hydrants, and then we looked at the pressures. And what this is showing, this map here on the left and on the right, they're pretty much the same. The one on the left is average day. I'm sorry, the one on the left is the current max day, and the one on the right is the future max day. So it's a difference between either 300,000 gallon demand or 390,000. But what it shows is the areas with the red dots are areas where there is not adequate pressure to get 500 gallons per minute out of a hydrant, which is really the minimum that you want to be looking at. So that basically shows that there's a deficiency in the system when it comes to being able to provide fire flows. In fact, 90% of the distribution system was not able to produce a hydrant flow of 500 gallons a minute. So again, as we talked about so far, we've talked about the supply, you know, the Long Pond itself. We've talked about the you know, as far as the treatment plant's ability to meet the current regulations. And then we talked about, you know, the distribution system and what we found. So what we're going to talk about now is what our recommendations are to basically, you know, upgrade the treatment and distribution systems so that they are compliant with the current regs and will continue to be compliant with the regs now and into the foreseeable future, say for a 20 to 30 year planning period at least. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian, who's going to talk about what we looked at for upgrading the treatment plant.
So when we looked at constructing a new water treatment plant, like Doug said, we really wanted to address what the deficiencies to what we saw, but also plan for the future. So to that end, we looked at it more of a two-phase approach to the construction of a new plant. The first phase, well, first of all, from our evaluation, from what we were able to see and from what water quality data we were able to look over, the existing Long Pond water treatment plant is able to provide adequate water quality. So the way we wanted to look at the approach for a new treatment plant is a kind of a two-phase approach, in that the first phase is a supplemental process of absorptive media filtration, which I'll go more into in a second, and then a new treatment building. This first phase is focused on addressing the manganese issue, which I discussed earlier. When we saw that data of manganese above the secondary contaminant limit, based on what we were able to see, it looked predominantly like a seasonal manganese issue, which is pretty characteristic of a surface water source, such as Long Pond. There seems to be turnover issues and certain times of the year. From the data that we're able to see could suggest that there is a seasonal increase in manganese. So the first phase would focus on kind of addressing just that high manganese issue. But also as part of that first phase, we'd also want to design for the future. So we'd also proposing a new building that could house processes that would eventually replace the Long Pond water treatment plant, which would lead us into phase two, which would be adding additional adsorptive media filter to accommodate the full flow, and an ion exchange process, which would provide similar treatment along with the media filters to replace the Long Pond water treatment plant permanently. So this is kind of some of the design criteria that we looked at. I won't go into all of it, but like I said, when both phases are completed, you'll be looking at pressure filtration with green sand media, an adsorptive media process I'll go into in the next slide, and then an ion exchange process following those filters, which I'll go into when we get there. So shown here is a site diagram. So right here down this bottom quarter, we have the existing Long Pond water treatment plant at the bottom of the Long Pond reservoir. We're proposing a new treatment plant kind of to the northeast of the treatment plant, leaving the chlorine contact basin in its place, and then adding this red line piping for additional water from the 1 million gallon storage tank that's currently up here. And there will be connections to the existing infrastructure in the Long Pond water treatment plant.
When we talk about this, I do want to note that this treatment plant would be capable of producing 300,000 gallons per day of treated water with one train out of service. So that is one of the DEP regulations, is that you can meet your max day demand from the treatment plant with one train out of service. So that is the sizing that we looked at when looking at this treatment plant.
Yep. So this process flow diagram is similar to what we showed earlier. Everything in black is the existing Long Pond water treatment plant, a schematic of the existing process. Everything outlined in red would be the addition of one vertical pressure vessel, the adsorptive media process, and then accompanying appurtenances, and this would all be housed in a new treatment facility. So a vertical pressure vessel, like we are proposing, it's based on the principle of adsorptive media filtration. So water going through this filter, the media almost acts like sticky. The manganese will stick to this media and will be removed from the water. And then as it passes through the filter, it will catch anything else that will go through it, any other larger particles, but it would also be able to remove any manganese going through it. The way the filter is currently sized for is it would accommodate the flow from the Long Pond treatment plant entirely. There's no redundancy at this point, only because it is a supplemental process, and it wouldn't be would most likely not be operating all the time, all year unless required. But so under the phase 2, this is when we completely take we take the Long Pond water treatment completely out of service, and then all water would go through this new treatment plant. As part of this process, we'd add a second vertical pressure vessel, which would act, now both these filters would act as regular filters, but also have that adsorptive media to continue to remove manganese. But downstream of each of these filters would be an ion exchange vessel. This ion exchange resin that exists in this vessel kind of acts similar to the media filter. It doesn't act as it more acts as like a contactor, where it's going to remove the organics that are passing through it, similarly to the Long Pond water treatment plant. So once it goes through both these processes, it effectively does what the Long Pond water treatment is already doing, but it can also now remove manganese and would also likely provide further organics removal. And this is a site plan of a new proposed building that we have laid out. This would, everything that's in just solid is just the first vessel, which would be, all this would be installed in phase 1. And then we have some outlines and some space set aside for those phase 2 processes. So we have our first our phase 1 pressure vessel here, a second vessel, and then the 2 ion exchange vessels for under phase 2. And now Doug's going to talk about some proposed infrastructure improvements.
So there's approximately 104,000 feet of piping in the Housatonic Waterworks Company distribution system. And based on the hydraulic model that we set up and looking at the fire flow deficiencies that we identified, we're looking at replacing approximately 2/3 of that piping. So about 67,000 feet or so. You know, somewhere in the order of 50,000 feet would be for 2, 4, and 6-inch piping. That would all get upgraded to 8-inch. There's some existing 8-inch piping that would be upgraded to 12-inch, and then some 10 to 12. And again, this is so that, you know, we'd be able to deliver fire flow by gravity from the existing storage tanks into the distribution system. This figure shows the proposed pipe that would be replaced. You can see, you know, and then the blue is actually cleaning and lining some existing mains. So again, this just shows you the extent of piping. The different colored pipe here shows the extent of main that will be replaced as part of this program. The map, the figure on the left shows, again, this shows where there were deficiencies would try to achieve 500 gallon per minute fire flow. Again, all the red is areas where we couldn't get at least 500 gallons per minute. And then after the improvements, you can see over here that there's much less red areas. Most of the areas at this point are green. So we're showing that you can achieve probably well over 750 gallons per minute of fire flow after those water main improvements are made. I will note that areas that are still red are most likely always going to be that way because they're probably higher points in the system, so that there's just a lack of static pressure in those areas to be able to achieve the necessary fire flows. Again, it's probably because of elevation. Oh, what happened?
Stop sharing.
Did I hit something?
Yeah,
oh, I may have hit a button here. Bear with me 1 second. We have to be given permission again to share, maybe?
Oh.
No. All right.
You should be all set.
Yeah, almost made it to the end without screwing up, but there we go. Sorry about that. All right. Is everyone seeing the screen now? Sorry about that. So what this shows is
what this shows is if you look at the table above, yeah. You know, somewhere in the order of 94% of the areas of town could not meet a 500 gallon per minute fire flow. I'm sorry, 94% couldn't meet a 750 gallon per minute fire flow. Anywhere between 57 and 75 could not meet a 500. Whereas after the improvements, those numbers dropped to somewhere around 10%. So again, you know, significant improvement by implementing that water main replacement program. So what we did is we then took all the recommendations from looking at the water supply, water treatment, and water distribution, and we came up with a real planning level estimated construction cost. And that's shown in the left column here. And then we added on top of that, you know, a factor for estimated engineering, permitting, and say an owner's contingency, which is another 40% on top of it. So it is somewhat of a conservative number, but what you'll see is the estimated cost to implement the recommendations we just talked about, which the big items are, you know, the phase 1 and phase 2 treatment plant, which are 1 and 1.1 million respectively for construction costs, plus the water pipelines. That's where most of the cost is approximately $15 million in costs to upgrade the about approximately 50,000 feet of 2, 4, and 6-inch mains to 8-inch. Plus there's another 4.5 million or so to upgrade some of the 8 and 12-inch water mains. So again, what that ends up totaling is somewhere around $22 million of estimated construction costs, which when you add on the engineering, permitting, owner's contingency, that somewhere ends up being around $31 million. We've taken a stab at showing where those costs could be implemented in the timeline. I will say we're showing both the phase 1 and phase 2 treatment plant work in the 0 to 5 years, but it is entirely possible that that phase 2 of the upgrade could be in the 6 to 10 or maybe even the 11 to 20 range, depending on how that first phase performs. But in general, you know, we're looking at somewhere in the order of, you know, if you were to implement this plan, somewhere around 14 million in the first 5 years, another 14 in the next 5, and then somewhere around 3 or so in the last year. So anyway, that's kind of a general overview of what we evaluated. You know, as mentioned, there's a 280-page report that was posted by the town on the website that goes into a lot more detail on this. So at this point, we'd be happy to take any questions that you may have. And I do want to ask if Bill Clooney and Wendell Wilnow are they enabled to speak if necessary, if there's any questions I need them to help answer?
See Bill.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Bill is. Mark's looking for Wendell, so. So let me start, and then the select board, as I said, is going to start with the questions, and we'll open to public. These questions are going to be simply about the report. You know, we know there's a problem. We understand that. So I'm going to ask the first question, which is really naive. So let me ask this really dumb question. You talked about safe drinking water. You talked about firefighting. I just want to assume at some point when these repairs, improvements are done, that people will feel comfortable washing clothes, bathing, doing dishes, and actually drinking the water. Someone mentioned the word aesthetics, and that has a number of connotations to it. And my part of this is, yes, it's important for the water to be safe and for firefighting. But when is it that you actually can do the rest of the things that need to be done in a normal household? Because this is a great report, really was comprehensive, but the naive part wasn't answered. So what part of the improvements, when does that happen?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's a tough question. You know, I would say implementing the additional filtration process at the treatment plant would improve on the water quality leaving the treatment plant. So that would address potential issues that folks are seeing now because of manganese. But you know, if you do just that without addressing the distribution system, you're taking you know, good clean water that's leaving the treatment plant, and you're putting it into, you know, unlined cast iron mains where, you know, history tells us are probably gonna, you know, impact what the user is gonna see. So I would say, you know, really the user would probably start to see, I mean, the general public would start to see benefits probably once we get pretty far into the distribution system replacement as well. I will say that you know, adding the additional process at the plant will definitely improve things, but you know, when is it going to be to the point where everyone's seeing a benefit? I would say once you start getting into the treatment, the distribution system upgrades. And Bill, Cooney, I don't know if you want to add something to that.
That's right, Doug. I hope you guys can hear me.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, and Doug is right. You know, in New England, there's a lot of utilities that have old mains and new treatment plants. One without the other is not the total solution to water quality problems. So the rusty water and dirty water complaints, even if the water leaving the facility is meeting all regulations, those issues will continue until the distribution system problems are addressed.
Thank you. Select board questions.
I have a pretty specific one, but I'm going to start with, I was really impressed with the readability of the report, a 200-page, very technical report. It really, I guess I'm saying this for anyone who's watching this who hasn't read it, don't be intimidated. It really is very readable. It could be a misunderstanding, but when you talked about the storage tank at 1 million gallons, but then it seemed like you were talking about it holding 250,000. Did I just misunderstand something?
Yeah, I think there's 2 tanks on the treatment plant site. There's a chlorine contact tank, which there was a chlorine contact tank and a 1 million gallon storage tank, both put in 97. Brian, do you know the size of the chlorine contact tank? Is that? No. Yeah, so I may have misspoke, Ed. The storage tank on site is 1 million gallons.
Okay. And there's 1 million gallons of water in it most of the time.
Yes. Yeah.
And then didn't you say I think it was the new filter would be able to process 200,000 a day, which is enough?
The new filter under the first phase, it would treat up to 300,000 gallons per day. So it would be able to handle what has historically been your maximum day. Again, as we noted, that's without redundancy, thinking that it would be a seasonal process. Under the second phase, we'd add a second unit to provide that full redundancy.
Thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Anyone else from the select board?
I have a question. I'm wondering whether or not, it seems to me that a lot of the problems happen after a flush, and there's a lot after the flush. Will this be taken care of with the new filters, or we won't see anything until the distribution is set up or not? That seems to be when it's most prevalent, the dirty water I'm speaking of.
Yeah, I can't say for sure, but most likely the cause of the issues after the flush is probably related to the piping and distribution system. The fact that it's unlined, most of it's unlined cast iron. So I would think that you know, putting the filter in it could improve it if for some reason it's manganese that's causing the issues in the distribution system. It's really hard to say as far as whether it would help the issues. I think there's still a lot of unknowns or a lot of different opinions as to what is causing the issues in the distribution system. So I think it won't hurt, but it may not completely solve the issue. Bill, do you want to chime in on that? Or
Sure. And you know, the fact that you have the dirty water complaints after flushing, really, it does point to the distribution system as part of the problem. No, I would say that with the new treatment system, the need to do flushing will be reduced. It wouldn't need to be as frequent. But flushing is something that all water utilities do at least twice a year, and everybody has a short period of dirty water complaints after flushing. It's unavoidable. And but again, with a new treatment system in line, the need to do flushing should be reduced.
Will that make that water less dirty with the reduced need of flushing?
It would still be dirty, but it wouldn't happen as often because the flushing program could probably be reduced.
Okay. And was there any, I don't know if you can tell that or not, is there any time frame of how long that after the flush, this water is still going to remain dirty? Because it seems like to me right now, it seems like it hangs around a while and it's been a problem for a lot of folks.
Yeah, that's really a function of the water age and the distribution system. I'm not sure, Mr. Reed. It'd be very hard to say right now, but newer pipes that are not corrosive or not providing that rust, and a new treatment plant that's minimizing the manganese going into the system eventually will reduce the need for flushing. And that's typically what we see is, customers will have a day where they're told, to expect some dirty water. But again, once or twice a year is usually what's typical.
Yeah, we did read reports where it could last for a week or two, which is somewhat unusual. I mean, that's not typical of what you would find. You may see dirty or discolored water for a day or so, but a week or two is unusual. And that's what we've seen reported.
Will that bring it back then? So we're not going to see this week or two? That's quite a long time.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Again, if the issue is being caused by manganese getting into the system, obviously upgrading the plant will help. But if a lot of it has to do with issues with corrosion control in the distribution system and unlined cast iron, then it could persist. We didn't look at that issue specifically into that much depth. We were limited into the information that we had to do this evaluation, but I definitely understand your concerns, because obviously, spending a lot of money, on the plant or even in the distribution system and not recognizing potentially the full benefits of the results for 10 or 20 years could be definitely frustrating for users and customers. So.
Absolutely.
Lee, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much for this detailed report. It's wonderful to see the summary, especially, and to actually see an improvement plan with the recommended time frame, which is something that I was curious about. A couple of things that stood out for me was I feel this is so urgent, the fact that 90% of the system, the current system, does not provide adequate fire flow. And that we're looking at 2/3 of the pipes needing to be replaced. So that tells me that we're not ready in case there's a fire in Housatonic. So are you able to quell my fears and talk to us about the fact that we don't have adequate fire flow currently in Housatonic?
There was some hydrant tests done, I think it was over 10 years ago, by I forget the name of the group, the insurance group that does it, but
Insurance Services Organization.
Office. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and those did show inadequate fire flows. I think as far as what that means, that's for more of the fire department to, I guess, comment on. I don't know if they've experienced issues with low fire flows or low pressures or not, but our results are based on a hydraulic model that was developed, so there may be some differences from what we found versus what is there in actuality, because again, we were kind of doing I have to say our model was based on what was available. We did not have adequate information to really go and calibrate it to the fullest extent we'd want to, which would require, opening hydrants and doing certain tests. but it should provide a general understanding of what is most likely out there. So I do need to add that qualifier. You know, we'd have to do some more field work to really kind of refine some of that information. But, you know, I'd say in general, it does point to there being inadequate fire flows.
Lee, before you go ahead.
Yeah. What? Okay.
You brought up the topic. Chief Berger, do you want to just, because you've talked about this before at budget meetings, well before Lee's time and most everyone's, do you want to just briefly talk about firefighting in Housatonic?
Sure. Yes, it's definitely a challenge. The model is actually very, very accurate for what we actually experience. The hydrants along the main roads in Housatonic, Park Street, Front Street, Depot, and Main Street are mostly 500 gallons a minute. And that's it. So yes, our best hydrants there are 500 gallons a minute, exactly as they modeled. And, you know, again, it all depends on the size of the fire and how quickly we get there and that kind of stuff. You know, if we get there when the fire's small, then that's plenty for us. But we have a huge fire load in Housatonic. And if you have a large fire in a large building or many of the places with a whole bunch of exposures, 500 gallons a minute doesn't do much of anything. And, you know, laying to the river takes time. We have a very high lift out of the river in Housatonic, which actually very much limits what we can actually draft out of the river also. So water supply is a huge challenge in Housatonic. So the sooner that can be addressed, the better.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you, Chief Berger. So just following up on that, so I'm looking at the timeline and seeing that there is this urgent need because there's such a deficiency in the fire flow. Where are we in this timeline to address that? Because I'm looking at the, you know, the 1 to 5 years, and I'm looking at the timeline that you provided. So
yeah, I mean, ideally, if you could do it all at once, you could. But you know, we tried to spread it out, recognizing. I mean, even obviously, $14 million over a 5-year period is a lot for a water system of this size. But, you know, we just tried to spread it out over, you know, for the most part, the smaller diameter over a 10-year period. You know, I know probably for the residents and for the fire chief, that's probably not quick enough. I mean, if in fact they are seeing those issues right now. But, you know, so where you are in the timeline, I would say there'd be improved. You probably see some improved water quality after the 10. I mean, after 10 years, all of the 2, 4, and 6-inch mains would be replaced with 8-inch, and an 8-inch is the minimum size that the DEP typically requires for a main carrying fire flow. So there would be improvements. There would definitely be improvements with that. Maybe combine it with a cleaning and lining project on the main 12-inch line that comes into town. So, you know, that's really, in a nutshell, I'd say 10 years.
Okay. So I had another question. Why are we using 2014 data sets and not current?
It's what we had available at the time for different metered flow data for the different users. At the end of the day, it will not impact the model. I mean, the fact that, you know, we set the model up for an average day of 210,000 gallons per day, when I think the average now is closer to 170 or 180. It will not impact the results at all. It was a good data set that we could actually use actual data for the different demands in the system. So that difference in flows, you know, the 210 versus the 180, it's negligible. That you won't even see that in the model.
So were you given full access to access the information that you needed, or is there a reason why you had to rely on old data sets?
We were limited to the information that was online or provided by the town. So, but again, for what we did for the model, I think it was, Lyndall can comment, but for the flows and that small difference, I feel pretty confident in the model that it shows it kind of represents what's going on right now.
Yeah, the data set that we use for the customer demands was more used for identifying the spatial distribution of the demands within the system. You know, the future conditions we looked at running the system at the safe yield for Long Pond. So that was, you know, that's pretty much the maximum that, you know, could be distributed within the system.
Okay.
And again, under normal demand conditions, you know, the pressures that you know, the customers will see are pretty reasonable. Maybe on the high side, and some of the customers along the river, it is more the firefighting capabilities is the bigger issue.
Yeah. So my last question, you had mentioned in the beginning of your presentation that something about not having another connection to Long Pond Reservoir for emergencies. Could you expand on that? Just
yeah, I guess what it was typically, I guess the point we were making is the Housatonic Waterworks company is kind of on its own. It doesn't have any emergency interconnection with other water companies. You know, a lot of, you know, so if something ever happened at the plant or with the supply, there is no backup connection. You know, somewhere down the road, you know, would it make sense to, and I think this has been looked at by other consultants, would it make sense to run a pipe and connect to the Great Barrington Fire District, and so that each community could be redundant to each other? You know, so if something happened with the Great Barrington Fire District, they could maybe rely on supply from Housatonic Waterworks Company, or the other way around. So that's what we meant by that. Is it's kind of on its own. It doesn't have any backup emergency connections to other water supplies.
So following up on that, is there an estimate that you could provide that gives us a sense of how much that would cost, so we have a backup? Because that's concerning to me.
Yeah, I mean, we can add to the capital improvement plan a line item for running a pipe to Great Barrington Fire District. We'd have to look at their system, you know, and see what, you know, their infrastructure is up to that proposed connection point, and then look at the hydraulic grade lines in each system to see if they're compatible, or whether, you know, a pump may be required or a pressure reducing valve on one side. But we should be able to get some quick information on that, so we can add an allowance in there for making that connection.
Is it unusual for a water company not to have an emergency interconnection, or is this?
No, not necessarily. You know, it's good to have, especially, you know, right now, a lot of water companies are doing, you know, risk and resiliency evaluations. It's an EPA requirement. And that's, you know, that's getting a lot of these communities to look at what their vulnerabilities are to different things, whether it be climate change or issues at their plants. So it's something that should be considered if it is available. But I would say it's not unusual to not have them.
Okay. But it's something that you'll budget, you'll give us a sense of how much that would cost. And
yes, yeah.
Last question. I guess this is just kind of coming off Steve's question. But you know, I know residents are going to say, well, you know, I can't wait 5 years. I can't wait 10 years. So obviously you've given us this timeline, but the soonest that if we start to move ahead with some of this, the soonest that people would actually see a change in their water quality would be within the 5 years. And I know that's kind of a general question, but just, you know, when you look at this timeline of nearly 15 years, people are going to say, okay, well, I don't have 5 years to wait for an improvement. So can you give us a sense of, you know, if we pull the trigger within a year, that we'll start seeing changes in water quality, that people can, you know, start drinking cleaner water and bathing and doing laundry?
If we assume that the first, I guess, increase in water quality is as a result of, say, adding that new filter process at the plant, I'd say you're at least probably, you know, 3 years away from having that online. Once you consider, it depends on what DEP, but Bill, that would probably have to be piloted, right?
Yeah, we would want to do a small test to come up with the design criteria. That would probably take 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it could be a couple years if it was fast track, but I'd say at least 2 years, maybe 3 before a new treatment process could be online.
And then during the replacement of the pipes, then do we go back to bad water quality, or will that be maintained during the bigger infrastructure work?
Well, I mean, the plant upgrade will help with the manganese getting in the system, which is causing seasonal issues with water quality. There was some other items that we commented on that, but we still don't have real good understanding of. There are 2 intakes in the pond, and it seems one's shallower and one's deeper. We I guess asked the question as to why maybe they don't not use the upper one and focus on the lower one, which may provide better water quality there, because the warmer, more shallow water may tend to have worse water quality in the summer. But I will say that again, you are going to see a benefit from the treatment plant, but the distribution system will be, I guess, the impacts in the distribution system from unlined cast iron mains. Again, that's those. I guess those residents will see a benefit from not having the seasonal manganese, but rust or other discolored water could be an issue, until those mains are replaced or relined. Again, I can't say for sure.
I mean, I think I might just add that, I think that it's something we could look at. I mean, it's we're just kind of looking at globally. You could look at what mains would be most effective to put in first. I think that's a detailed consideration, but you can look at. Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
No, I was going to say, and I think Lyndall doing some field. If we were going to actually do that, we'd probably want to do some field work to get real ideas of where the most tuberculated and heavily corroded mains are. I think that would help as well.
Chief Berger has his hand up, I think. So, Chief, did you want to say something?
Yes, a few things. With regards to the main replacement and stuff for fire flow, the main roads are of the highest concern. The side streets are, for fire flow wise, are things that could certainly wait. With regards to a backup supply, I believe they do have a agreement with the fire district. The hydrants from Housatonic Water and the fire district are only a few hundred feet apart up on Christian Hill, which is where they would make a temporary connection if there was a catastrophic problem with the sources of either system. And the storage tanks are at very close to the same elevation, so the systems are pretty much compatible with each other. They were designed to be that way, actually. And I have one question with regards to one of the easiest ways to, not cheap ways necessarily, to dramatically improve fire flow in Housatonic without upgrading the very long transmission main from the treatment plant is a additional storage tank in the village of Housatonic. Is that something that you looked at all? Because I mean, the size of the mains within the village and the grid system there can certainly supply a much better fire flow. The problem right now is the transmission main, for the most part, coming from Long Pond to 41 before it branches out in 3 directions to feed the village. Is that something that could be looked at?
Yeah, we could look at it. Absolutely. Wendell, did we look at that? I mean, I know one of the things is they have more than 1 million gallons at the plant is more than enough supply there. So from a total storage standpoint, there is enough. Putting another tank in the system would probably require a booster pump station as well. I think, wasn't there a booster pump station in another tank at one point?
There was a booster pump over on Prospect Street for some reason at one point, but I don't believe that's in service anymore.
Yeah, I think they took it out of service when they put the new tank in.
Yeah,
Wendell, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think certainly, as the chief indicated, a tank in the center of the the Housatonic village area would provide a proximity for the storage for firefighting, so that would you would not have the pressure loss from Long Pond all the way. It does bring up other issues potentially for water quality, where you now have the 1 million gallons of storage at Long Pond plus additional storage. So you have potential for either degradation of your chlorine residual or potential formation of disinfection byproducts. But I mean that's something that could be looked into.
Thank you. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you for your report. Definitely very thorough. Also made me thoroughly depressed. Just a few questions on the pipes. I know cast iron, if I'm not mistaken, tends to corrode and rot from the inside out. I did see how in the report says 13% of the system contains asbestos pipes. Is there any way to tell what kind of condition those pipes are in? And then also, when was that pipe stopped being used? Like at what time in the 100 or so years did they stop using that?
Wendell, was that in the 70s they stopped using that pipe?
It was either the 70s or the 60s. It was primarily post-war.
Yeah.
And the thing about asbestos concrete pipe is that if the pipe is in good shape, it's really no hazard to the consumer. The fibers are bound up in the pipe material. It can be more of an issue to remove the pipe than to, and there's been a number of iterations within the state of what's the best procedure for that. But it's generally, it has not been. It was mostly like 50s and 60s when that was most prevalent being put in.
Yeah, as far as the condition, that pipeline does see, corrosion from the outside. So the best way to probably, determine the condition of that would be to probably do some test pits in different areas of town just to check and see what the condition is.
Then if, I know from your report, I saw that there several locations with PVC piping ran as a main. Can a public, if the water company was public, would they be allowed to run PVC in the roadways and for public water supply?
Yes. Yeah, there are several communities that use PVC water main.
Yeah, it is certified for use in potable water systems.
Is it? Okay. And then one other thing, in the beginning of your report, it said that there was no official formal complaint log. Is that common? Do you see that being common with other public or private water companies you've worked for?
It varies. I mean, some communities do have a formal complaint log, others don't. That's not to say they don't take complaints and log them somewhere. Again, we were, we had a good amount of information to do this assessment. There may be other information out there, but I would say it's split as far as whether a community has that or not.
Thank you.
Okay, so more. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
Sorry for all the questions. Chief Berger had mentioned the close proximity of some of the pipes from the Great Barrington Fire District to the Housatonic Waterworks. Is there anything that we can do, if we were to somehow combine the use of the two, or is there anything knowing the close proximity that would help if for some reason, there was some kind of joining of the two or joining of the two water companies?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously big benefits. There's potentially excess supply, at Long Pond that could benefit,
to supplement some of the Great Barrington Fire District supply or vice versa, or it would add a level of redundancy. You would need to closely look at the water quality in each system, corrosion control, compliance with the lead and copper regulations. A lot of that is very finicky on the chemistry in the water system. So if you were to combine two systems, you'd need to make sure that, that they are compatible. They're using similar disinfectants, their corrosion control schemes are similar, pressures are similar, but they're absolutely, I think longer term, if there would be a benefit to, say combining them such that there would be redundancy in a lot of the supply and systems.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, just a quick, because I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea on timing. The timing estimate to when customers might see better water assumes there is some entity that's ready to go, has the funding in place, right? This is not for tonight because this is not part of the report.
Right.
But I just don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. As bad as it sounded, it's probably worse as far as how long it'll take.
So there are 3 people with their hands up. If you state your name and address and ask the question about the report. So let's start with Richard Gulick. There's a 3-minute limit, but this isn't really meant to give this is meant to ask questions. I don't think any of these will take that long. So Richard?
Unmute. Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask questions and comment. My name is Dr. Rich Gulick, and I serve as the water quality consultant for the Housatonic Waterworks Company. My address is 151 Old Farm Road in Leominster, Massachusetts. I'm the owner of Water Compliance Solutions, LLC.
And the only thing we're asking tonight, you haven't been given permission to speak as a non-resident, but if you have questions, that's fine. I'm not here to have an open debate about this tonight.
Okay. I was going to ask, I had comments and questions related to some of the regulatory discussion. So let me ask what I can then.
We're not going to get into that tonight. We're going to let citizens of Housatonic and Great Barrington speak. There was no request for you to speak, so we will move on. And at another point, when we have open discussion, we'll make sure you can get on.
I accept that. I will have great news for you. Mr. Gabriel, you'll be happy with some of this and some of it you won't be. But there are significant things to discuss with the report. I'll look forward to another time.
Thank you very much. Ann O'Dwyer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. So Ann O'Dwyer, 26 Kirk Street, Housatonic. And I both appreciate the report and its thoroughness, and I appreciate the Select Board's questions. You've covered many of the questions I had. I guess I just wanted to follow up on the very small, well, you mentioned the 2014 data, but also at one point you mentioned that you had a sample size of 6 over a 3-year time frame. And I guess I'm just wondering why such a low sample size. An N of 6 seems really small.
Yeah,
that's my first question.
yeah. That's the information that was made available to us. We'd obviously, in an ideal world, like to see more data points to be able to, base our evaluation off of. But that is the data that we had available to us. And again, going back to the 2014, usage data, again, there's such a small difference between the 2014 and the 2021 data as far as flows that I don't think that's not a big deal at all. I still feel pretty strong about what the model's showing based on that. I think you'd see a very small difference if you updated based on current data, if at all. You probably wouldn't see any change at all in the results.
Well, I guess just to follow up on that, I hear you being very certain about the flow data, but the manganese as the source of the discoloration seems, as I read your report and as I listen to you, sounds more like a hypothesis than a determination. Is that correct?
we were basing that off of the report that was completed by Housatonic Waterworks Company. They had another firm go in and look at that. So that's based on that report. The firm that did that is a reputable firm, and you know, we read that and used that information in our analysis. Bill, I don't know if you want to add anything more to that, or.
I actually would like to just say real quick that it's in the evaluation. Appendix D is the report that contained our hypothesis based on the manganese.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm just saying, is that a hypothesis or that's a conclusion?
Well, we do know that if manganese enters the distribution system, there will be complaints of discolored water, and it does have aesthetic impacts.
Okay.
That's, I mean, I wouldn't say that's a hypothesis, that, that's known, but we were relying on the data from the other report to provide that starting information.
And can I guess I apologize that I'm asking quite a few questions here. I guess I'm just trying to understand, this is more, why is it so hard to get water samples? I mean, you could come to my house. You could come to my house and get a water sample anytime.
Yeah, and again, we were provided with information. I can't answer why there aren't more samples taken, or why there haven't been, or if there are, whether they're available or not. So
you don't do the sampling.
The sampling was not part of the scope of work that we had.
Oh, okay, interesting. All right. I do have one more question, but I think Lee wants to follow up.
Sorry, it just concerns me why, that we're using water samples provided by Housatonic Waterworks that are old. I'm just curious why we're relying on this and why the data sets are so old. So I don't understand. It seems like you weren't able to get what you needed. Is that correct?
The only information that we used from 2014 was the flow information. There was information available, water quality data, between 2016 and 2020. So the water quality data is fairly recent that we were provided. Again, I think the point being that there were, and I think we made this point in the report, that there were only a few, I don't know, Brian, but there weren't like a lot of samples to rely on, right? Is that the...
No, over like a 2 to 3 year period, there's often maybe 20 data points for each parameter that we looked at.
Were there samples that you wanted to take that you were unable to take?
We didn't hire them to do samples.
Pardon me?
Yeah, we didn't hire you to do samples, that's correct.
Yes, yeah.
So,
Ian, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I just have one other question. On page 412, you noted that secondary standards, which are the sort of more aesthetic standards, are not typically enforced by Mass DEP unless customers' complaints related to these issues become excessive and warrant addressing. And I guess as a resident of Housatonic, I'm sort of wondering who do I complain to get the DEP to care?
I mean, I think they do care. I've seen a lot of reports issued from them as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we should complain directly to the DEP or our state legislature?
Yeah, I guess you could complain directly to DEP.
Okay.
Thank you, Ann.
All right, thank you.
Denise, I'm going to assume it's Denise Forbes. What happened to Denise?
There she is. Thank you for unmuting me. Yes, it is. Denise Forbes, 325 North Plain Road, Housatonic. I know that this report's very big and I've been reading through it, and so has Sharon Gregory. And we both noticed on page 34, 4.4, water treatment plant site assessment evaluation. January 21st, a visit went on, and basically the AECOM personnel were unable to physically enter the treatment plant. The buried infrastructure was buried under a fresh blanket of snow, making an assessment of the structures difficult. And the physical assessment was primarily completed using documentation provided by Housatonic Water Company. A view of the interior plan from the doorway and pictures of the interior provided by Housatonic Water Company. I'm just a little concerned. It's kind of like the fox watching the hen house. You're getting all your information from the Housatonic Water Company, and I just would prefer having it from a third-party person and you guys going in there and seeing it all for yourself. And then you were also told because of COVID, you couldn't go inside. AECOM personnel were unable to physically enter the treatment plant. So having these restrictions makes it a little bit, I feel like this report is, has a few issues because it doesn't, you're not there looking at the stuff physically yourself. And you're trusting the pictures you're provided with from the Housatonic Water Company, which is a concern. And also, if you're coming up with recommendations and a comprehensive cost estimate is around 31 million. It's a lot of money. How are you going to get Housatonic Water to comply with your recommendations? And how are you guys going to get them to do what they have to do?
Please let me answer those questions because this is really not what they were hired to do. This is an independent group that was hired by the town of Great Barrington, not by the Housatonic Water Company. It gave us an idea of what the scope of the problem is, but it's up to the town, up to the select board and administration to figure out the next steps. We're not there yet. But
oh, okay. So this is preliminary and you're basically finding out, yes, we do have a problem. Our water has been roiling and brown for the past couple of years. And I'm really fed up with it. So I'm just really concerned.
Yeah, we are too.
All right, I appreciate that. I would like to see this resolved as soon as possible. I'm in Eric's camp. I'm horrified and I'm nervous and scared and I'm just worried that we're never gonna have good water.
And Eric is in our camp because we all 5 select board members feel the same way, so doesn't the administration. That's why we've hired this group. That's why there will be another report in 2 weeks.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Denise. Suzanne Fowle.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Couple questions about piping materials and then a couple questions about lead and copper and availability of data. So first, I think Eric was asking about asbestos cement pipes, and I'm wondering, and your answer was about sometimes the asbestos is better left untouched, depends whether those pipes are eroding or not. So is the asbestos level tested? So we know whether that erosion is happening?
I do not know.
So we don't know if asbestos is being tested for.
I do not know the answer to that question. Whether
that's something we can find out.
Okay, so the DEP doesn't require that?
Not that I'm aware of.
And then what would the new pipe material be if you were to replace the pipes?
It could most likely ductile iron, cement lined ductile iron pipe is a possibility. I mean, you know, it was mentioned earlier, PVC pipe is something that is used sometimes as well as high density polyethylene pipe. So there are different pipe materials, but for the most part, around that part of the state, I would say probably be cement lined ductile iron pipe.
And then regarding lead and copper, your report said that no lead or copper above safe levels since I think 2016, or they were 2016, 2018 maybe?
Yep.
So somebody who's lived here for a long time, I don't have a whole lot of peace of mind knowing that just this past 3 years I haven't been ingesting lead and copper. So how do we get the data going farther back to get a more complete picture of what we've been drinking all these years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that Housatonic Waterworks Company has that data. And if not, Mass DEP would have it.
The Consumer Confidence Reports, which has a summary of the water quality, go back to 2011.
So then wouldn't you guys have had access to that? Or is there some process that needs to be gone through to give you access to more samples?
We could have. We were really focused on the last 5 years when we were looking at the water quality, which is most representative of what the current issue is.
Okay, so it's not something that the select board needs to do to help give you access to more samples.
Yeah, I mean, from what we're looking at, it looked like there was potentially an issue with compliance, 2017, 2016 period, and it looks like that issue has they've got the Housatonic Waterworks Company has gotten a good handle on it, and it would now appear to be compliant with the regulations. So whether that had to do with some repiping that they did up at the treatment plant, as far as their storage tank or how they're operating or the chemicals they're using, I'm not sure, but it does point to them being compliant at least the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. So I understand from a regulatory standpoint, engineering standpoint, the fact that they're compliant now is good, but in terms of cost to the community and the accumulation of costs to all of us, I think it's important to go farther back. And then last
we can look at that.
Okay, thank you. Last question is, why were you not asked to take samples? Like Ann O'Dwyer said, I think many of us would be willing to give you water samples any day, any time from our taps.
Yeah, I mean, at the time when we worked out what the scope of work should be with the town, we were going to rely on information that had been sampled by Housatonic Works Company through their compliance sampling. So I'm not saying that additional samples wouldn't help with the analysis, but we used what was available to us at the time.
Well, I think I speak for a lot of us, but my confidence in Housatonic Waterworks samples is very low. So that really, the fact that you weren't collecting samples yourselves or using an independent sampler that has no relationship to Housatonic Waterworks, that may be the thing that's stressing me out the most. I think we're all having a reaction to this report, which I really appreciate, but that's a big reaction for me. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
Could I, this is from AECOM. I just wanted to go back to a question about asbestos. The primary standards that EPA has established does include asbestos fibers. And that is exactly to address the prevalent use of asbestos cement pipe in a lot of older distribution systems.
Thank you. Trevor Forbes.
Yes, good evening. Hopefully you can hear me. Trevor Forbes,
for the record.
325 North Plain Road, Housatonic. And again, this was clearly a very comprehensive report, and I thank AECOM for providing that. It is extremely detailed. It does raise a lot of questions. So I have a couple of questions, and I have to say that I really do think that the select board, you've asked some very good questions tonight. So my questions have evolved over this particular period. But I do have two questions. One that comes out of the report as far as AECOM is concerned. The other one actually is for the really for the select board. what I wanted to just clarify from AECOM is, obviously you didn't carry out any of your own assessments of manganese in the system. But it does appear that manganese is a major culprit. We, for example, over the last 2 months have just had consistently brown water in this part of Housatonic. And I believe it's been suggested by you and other people that manganese is the culprit. You mentioned in your report that clearly there is a potential aspect coming up that will actually be cited by, I think it was the DEP, in terms of manganese, and having a certain level of manganese in the system is not appropriate. My question to you is, if we go to phase 1 of your water treatment system, you partially answered the question, but not entirely. So I just wanted to clarify, will that phase 1 withdraw the manganese from the system if that manganese itself is coming from maybe the higher levels, as you suggested, in Long Pond?
Yes.
So in a sense, that begins to answer one of Lee's questions, which is how long it will take for people to see a measurable improvement. If manganese is the culprit, then that actually becomes an important factor to bear in mind. My question for the Select Board, and I know this, you didn't actually require AECOM to provide their own samples, but along with a number of other people who've made their comments fairly clearly tonight, I'm very concerned about taking any information that is being provided by either Housatonic Water or the apparently, I think as you put it, sort of people who are responsible, the people who are responsible for looking at the quality of the water. We've certainly come across some people who've had competing assessments in terms of water quality, actually residents in Housatonic themselves. And it appears that there is a difference in terms of the assessment if you take a truly independent source rather than one that has been providing Housatonic water with quality numbers for a number of years. So this does beg a big question that has been mentioned by people on the Select Board and obviously other people here. And I would like to ask the Select Board whether there is any intention at this stage to have a truly independent assessment of the quality of the water that is being provided by Housatonic Waterworks.
So I'll give you the short answer is that we're going to have another report next meeting, and then we're going to Select Board to discuss it. And I think the short answer is yes, it's a possibility.
Thank you. Okay. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Forrest. And the last question for tonight, it's really not the last, is Stark. I believe it's probably Jim Stark. Just unmute yourself, please. If you just unmute yourself, you will be able to talk. Give it a couple more seconds. Okay, we're going to move ahead. I want to thank everyone tonight. This is a good beginning. As I said earlier, this is not the end. This is just the beginning of a process. Hopefully not a long process, but in reality, it will be much longer than any of us like. So thank you, gentlemen, for the report, and we will move on in the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You want to go back to the drive?
No, I'm going to finish. I don't think Mark has a lot.
Okay, so moving on with our with my town manager's report, veterans marker at the Housatonic Community Center. I just wanted to take an opportunity this evening to thank Richie Atwood and his business A&A Memorials in Housatonic for volunteering his time and materials to clean the veterans marker at the Housatonic Community Center. That work was completed a few weeks ago, and I just wanted to acknowledge his efforts there. So thank you, Rich. And next up, Chief Berger is here to provide some departmental updates.
Good evening. Last week we had a very busy week outside of the structure fire and a 6-hour rescue up on the Appalachian Trail on Friday. We actually ran, I believe, 39 calls last week, which is close to double our normal call volume. So I did not get done most of what I actually wanted to complete for this evening. I'm working on a report with, I think, some excellent data in it that you will all like, but I'm not ready with it yet. So seeing that this is a long meeting tonight, I don't know if you want to bypass me and I'll be back in a couple of weeks. I do have the one agenda item later on though with regards to false alarm billing.
Okay, that'd be fine. We can put you on either the next agenda or if you're not ready, the one after that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
I have one other item under town manager's report and then a quick add-on, so 2 total. I was asked to poll the select board on a date, time, and location for Housatonic neighborhood meeting. As you recall, during pre-COVID times, we were having neighborhood meetings, and I'd like to resume those meetings now, and I just wanted to ask the board if they could look at their calendars and find a date that would work.
Yeah, we thought we had August 2nd. That's not going to work. So for the board members, I'm just going to run through some dates, and we'll hope that it works for the staff because we want this certain staff members there. Like to do it in as early in August as possible. So August 3rd, it's a Tuesday.
Yes.
I can do August 3rd.
I have a CPC meeting at 5, so if we do it at 6, I could make it probably.
Okay, so we do it at 6. That'll be work for you, Lee?
Yeah.
Okay. Garfield?
That's fine for me.
Mark?
That works. Or are you thinking Zoom?
No, we're going to Housatonic.
Okay.
We're taking this show on the road.
So sorry, you want to go through the list to confirm dates?
If you can do it, we're done.
Okay. My one concern about Housatonic Community Center is we will not be able to host a hybrid meeting there. There's no internet service at the center. So it would be an in-person meeting if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That's a good point. I'm not sure that's going to, I really want to do it in Housatonic, but I also don't want to cut people out who can't attend because I think it's more important for people to attend. So,
I mean, one advantage we have in that location is we can really spread it out.
Yeah.
No, we can spread it out, but if there's people with kids or older people who don't want to come out at night, it's really being unfair to them. We've really gotten into something with these hybrid meetings. So I think we're going to end up probably doing this hybrid. Not because we don't want to go to Housatonic, but because I think the number of people is more important than the location.
So August 3rd, Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
We'll discuss meeting format or.
Yeah, we'll figure that out
as we get a little closer.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I just have one last add-on here to my town manager's report this evening, and that's just to let folks know that the bridge, State Bridge, formerly the Brown Bridge, now the Red Bridge, State Road in Maine. We're expecting the state to complete work there within 1 to 2 weeks. So that's very good news and not that far off from their most recent update, which was the end of June. So hopefully that will help move traffic.
Yeah, that is good news. Okay, so I'm going to move back to No, who I want.
Howard Jacobs.
Looking for Matt.
There's Howard.
Yes, I'm on the line. This is Howard Jacobs.
Matt Punton.
Is Matt Punton on the line with us? He should be.
Hi, Matt Punton here also.
Hi, Matthew Punton is the engineer from SK Design who can comment about the question you had about the road grade.
Yeah, I see it. Matt, are you on the line? Can you hear us?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, so the question was about, actually, I'm going to let Chief Berger, who has much more expertise in this, state the concern. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yes, the driveway that I have the drawings for on Blue Hill Road show a driveway over 1,000 feet long with probably a 150-foot section of it. A lot of it's a pretty good grade, 7 to, I can't quite see if that's 5 or 9% there, but probably a 150-foot section of it shows a grade of 12%, which really is not, particularly during certain periods of the year, is not accessible for emergency vehicles. So decreasing that grade would definitely increase the safety of the residents of the house.
Good point, Chief. We can easily obtain a 10% maximum in that area. I believe 10% is the standard you typically look for.
Correct.
You're right. There's maybe a 200-foot section, give or take, of a 12% slope. Looking at the plan, we can easily accommodate that and make adjustments to the driveway. It'll take a little bit of earthwork, but it can be done.
Excellent.
So do I have a motion to approve?
I have one other.
Okay, go ahead.
This is probably just paperwork, but in the application under I, the existing driveway is 24 feet. They were looking for a waiver, but then in the conditions, it's still 22 feet. 22 feet is the maximum for the width of the driveway where it hits the road. They're asking for a waiver of 24, but it's not in the conditions. Do I have all that right?
I can interject that saying there's an existing driveway there that is 24 feet wide where it meets the pavement. In regarding to your conditions, I guess I'll let you folks.
Right, so give them a condition of 22 feet if it's already 24.
Right.
It's page 18 of the packet.
Yeah.
17, sorry, 17.
So let's do this. Can I have a motion to approve the driveway permit with a maximum grade of
10%.
10%, thank you. And to allow the driveway to stay at 24.
Yes.
And all other conditions as noted. Please.
Sure. I make a motion to approve the driveway permit at 38 Blue Hill Road Drive to access to 40 Blue Hill Drive with a maximum grade of 10% and to allow the rest of the driveway to 24?
24, yes.
24% grade? And
24 feet.
24 feet.
Yeah.
24 feet with the other conditions.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote. Garfield? He's frozen right now, and I'm not so sure that is an R. So I have a hand up while I'm waiting for Garfield to unfreeze. Martha, is that about this driveway permit? Just unmute yourself, please. One more time, Martha, it's the only name I have here.
Hi, did I finally get through? It's not Martha, it's her husband.
Okay, this is about a driveway permit. Is that what you're about?
No.
We're on the driveway permit right now.
Okay.
What was it? You want to talk about the Housatonic?
About the bridge on Division Street.
We're not at citizen speak time yet, so you'll have to wait till we get to that.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
I'll recognize you then. Okay, Garfield, are you unmuted? You're unfrozen. So we're voting on this roll call vote on the driveway permit. Garfield.
Just throwing clarification that there will be, as Lee said, 10%, and how will that be checked? And will we know that that's actually going to be the case? Will this
Town staff will take care of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Perfect. Eric.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And aye. It's unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see if we can get through the next bit in without too much. Pedestrian safety, Sean. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and promote Chief Story.
Okay. Who wants to go first, either Sean or Chief Story? Don't jump in all at once.
I can just get us started here
Good,
by
please.
mentioning that. So I was asked to put this item on the agenda for tonight.
I can start, I guess. And sure. So can you hear me?
Yes. Sean, are you there?
Yeah.
You're breaking up. Yeah, come to jump over here. Have a seat. Perfect.
So I can give you a brief update. I think I touched upon this the last time I gave updates. The beta engineering is going to be coming up with the bid documents to do some alterations to the crosswalks on Main Street, which might involve an island and some pedestrian lights. It's unlikely that work will be taking place until late fall, depending on how fast we get the bid documents out. That is, and we're also going to finish painting the crosswalks because I think the rain's got in the way of some of the work the last 2 weeks.
And Chief Story, you have a little bit to add about pedestrian safety?
Well, yeah, I have a few plans in place as staffing allows me to do so, to just have increased visibility and to do some educational components to it, along with not just pedestrians, but also bicycle safety and traffic safety, especially the downtown area. So it's once I'm able to be a little bit more aggressive with that, that plan will be going into place also to try to complement the plans in the near future that the engineering firm that came up with.
Okay, questions, Lee?
Thank you, Sean and Chief Story. A question for Chief Story. Will we be seeing any officers on bikes anytime soon? And will there be an officer at the crosswalk, or do you have any plans to do so?
Yes, I do have plans to do so. Currently, I'm struggling with just managing getting shifts filled. I have some staffing issues, and we are having to force officers to work to fill the vacancies. So currently, I just don't have the staff to be able to do those supplemental shifts. I'm hoping in the near future, I'm trying to recruit some newer officers that are trained, so to get them up and running is a lot quicker.
Thank you. I guess this is a follow-up question for Mark. Is there anything that we can do to support the police? Because I am aware of some staff issues right now. So is there anything that we can do, you know, with the parking enforcement officer, for example, or volunteers? Or I just feel like it's such an issue right now, especially with the summer being so busy and the busking festival. I just don't want this summer to go by and do nothing.
So just to clarify your question, are you asking if we can do something to address the staffing shortage right now?
Exactly. Whether it's someone at the crosswalks or some kind of visibility that just gives a sense that, you know, we're paying attention, you know, we don't want too many flashing signs, you know, with slow down or whatever, but I just feel like, you know, being aware of the staffing shortage in the police department, I just feel that we need to do something. So, you know, some kind of visibility that the town can provide. So I'm just looking to you for some creative solutions before someone gets hurt or killed, because we've all seen close calls. So I just want to be proactive about this and not just say that, you know, tough, it's, you know, a staffing issue.
Yeah, Lee, you know, that's a great question and a great point. It's a really tough topic, especially now that police reform has come into place as of July 1. It does make training for, like you said, those part-time people. They aren't even offering that training anymore because of police reform. So what I've been trying to do is trying to recruit actually full-time trained officers that want to work for us part-time from other agencies without implementing or impacting their full-time status in other departments. And I currently just last week received an application from an officer. So I'm hoping to get him up and running very soon. You know, now that Mark's back from vacation, I think we can hopefully get an interview set up and get him started with the training. That's just a small step, but with civil service also it complicates the hiring process. It slows it down. Our current civil service list is completely exhausted. We have no more candidates on that list to even interview. So the test was just given last month, I think at the end of June. Those results will not be out until probably late August, early September, when I can call for a list, and I plan on calling ahead of time, you know, get on the waiting list. So as soon as it comes out, it gets distributed to me, and start that process and evaluating that list and getting the hiring process start to fill those vacancies. So it's on my radar, and I'm working hard, but I'm really handicapped in as far as the rules that are in place.
So I had one follow-up question. I mean, I know that you used to, you know, we had crossing guards when the school was downtown, and we have a parking enforcement officer. Is there anything that we can do as a town to staff that, just to have something for the summer? I don't know really the requirements for having crossing guards, if it's a volunteer position, or if we can, you know, use the parking enforcement officer to double up to work at the crosswalk, or if that's even something we want to consider.
I know that there are other police agencies that do have it. I don't know what the credentials are as far as the requirements to get them trained and hired, but I can definitely look into that and let you know.
Thank you, Chief.
I have just one other question, I guess, just as follow up what Lee was saying. So are you saying, Paul, that we can't use civilians? Is that what you were saying? That there was a
Garfield, I'm not sure of what the prerequisites are to fill like a crossing guard position. I know other towns do it. I don't know what that falls under as far as training and would have to go into place to have them do that. I'll have to research that.
Okay. At one point they always just use.
Anything else on this?
I just have a couple questions.
Sure.
Just in regards to the walks, as far as the median, the island.
So the one that goes across, from the fuel.
You know, what we should do is get Garfield and Eric the report. I don't know that you've seen the.
I don't think I have. Yeah. Okay.
We'll get you the report.
Sounds good. And then just one other thing that a few people have brought to my attention is when we come out by Berkshire Bank, when you're driving, and the turn signal so the drivers can, and it's also the time that people can walk. Can we?
So I altered that a year ago and didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
So it's now set that it's just to cross as pedestrian.
It's just a pedestrian.
But I will tell you that the state of Massachusetts, throughout the whole state, has it set that way.
Yes. Yeah, I knew that. Yes. I just had somebody this past week just harass me about it.
Yeah.
I'll double check, but we went through.
I cross that all the time. It's now.
So we didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to hear that we were causing traffic problems. But I think it was almost 2 years ago we changed it.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you both. Fire department false alarm fee schedule.
Good evening again. We've been diligently working through the recommendations from the study for the fire department that was done a number of years ago. And one of the recommendations was to update our false alarm billing policy. And it was actually the old one was actually a town bylaw, so it had to get changed at town meeting. It was changed at the 2020 town meeting, but it took a very long time due to COVID to have everything approved through the Attorney General's office. So pretty much what the policy, the town bylaw was changed to was that the select board can set a policy for billing for false fire alarms up to $250 per false alarm. So in the memo that I submitted to you, I included a recommendation at the end there in italics for what I recommend the policy to be. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Well, we get a motion on this.
I make a motion to accept the fire department false alarm fee schedule.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, except I'm looking for Garfield. There he is. He's gone. He's back. Garfield. There's a roll call vote on the fee schedule. You're muted.
Aye.
Thank you. Eric.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And aye. It's unanimous. Chief, you're all set.
Thank you.
I want to just give an overview of the next one, and then I can answer questions.
The BRPC?
No, actually, you're right. I missed that one. FY22, an alternate appointment to the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept the alternate appointment as stated to the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission.
That would be Malcolm Fick.
Yeah.
And the name would be Malcolm Fick.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Lee, a second by Ed. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Garfield?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And aye. It's unanimous. I'm sorry, Mark. Now, Kevin.
Okay. So in your packet for this evening, you should have an end of year projection from the Berkshire Hills Region. Like to this summer. We received a letter from them recently asking the select board and each of their communities to review this within 45 days. Their excess and deficiency, which is equivalent to a town's free cash, is estimated, or the new estimated balance is roughly $1.8 million. And the school district, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is limited to retaining 5% of the total budget, which would be
1.5.
1.5.
Yeah.
So the school administration would like to use $271,000 of this funding to conduct some maintenance, some projects that are
Garfield?
My estimate is August 7th. So if we don't conclude this tonight, we have one more opportunity to do that. So I guess now I'll pass it over to you.
If we take no action on this, the school district can go ahead. There was a second email that came from Sharon just, I think, last week, that if this is approved by each member town, and by approved just means they take no action, somewhere in December or January, once the free E&D is approved, there will be a return to each town of a sum of money, even after this money is spent. And for Great Barrington, it's probably going to be about $250,000. So that's once our E&D is certified, the school district's E&D is certified. So what we're really asking the select board tonight I believe, because we can't take the action on this if we wanted to.
You mean outside of using E&D?
For using. Okay, so either way, does the select board want to act on this? If we don't act on it, it gives the school district the approval to use.
Yes, fine not to do anything.
I'm not seeing anyone wanting to do anything.
I just don't do anything. They can do the work.
Correct.
And they give us money.
And they give, okay.
Yes.
We receive the balance.
Yeah. And
okay.
The theory is that this work will get done a year or two sooner than it would have been, and it won't appear as a capital cost on our budget, so it'll save us money also that way.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be no borrowing. We'll be using E&D.
This is
of where the surplus came from, but there's not many good things with the pandemic. But as a result of the pandemic, there was some money that was left unspent.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, moving ahead to citizen speak time.
No action.
No action. Anybody just wants to raise their hand? Start with Ann O'Dwyer.
Hi, Ann O'Dwyer again, 26 Kirk Street. And I guess,
go ahead, Ann.
Hi, thank you. I think I'm still just reeling a little bit from the report from AECOM. I guess I'm just wondering if as we go forward and think
Cut out, Ann, I'm not sure.
Is it me? Hello? Oh, come on. Can you hear me?
I can.
I can. I don't think Steve can.
Oh, it's Steve.
It's just everyone in town hall.
Oh dear. Okay.
So, Ann, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. You know, as we look
at
this,
waiting for Ann to get back. No, hold on, Ann. Well, we're trying to get you back up. Mark, can I just ask you that we again look at the internet here, because we're not going to do well with this if we don't fix this. And I thought we had replaced it. So
we did. All the access points have been replaced.
Yeah, well, that didn't work. And as we get more people here with devices, we're going
to. Can other people hear me?
Yeah, we're just waiting.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. You could relay it to Steve.
You give us a thumbs up now.
There we go.
Okay. Ann, can you hear us?
I can hear you fine, yeah.
Go ahead and speak before we lose you again.
All right, I will be very fast here. As we look at this long-range plan about the Housatonic water.
Fast enough.
And just tell us what you want.
Okay.
One more time, Ann.
So Steve, I'm just going to keep talking because Lee
put our
and
devices,
Garfield can hear me.
I went to sell.
Yeah, let's just cut our devices. Let's see if we can get the load off.
Ed, you're still on.
I'll leave the meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
And don't go anywhere.
I have nowhere to go, so just sort of sitting here.
Okay, yeah, let's try it again.
Okay,
I'm getting my internet connection is unstable. So
I think we also should be thinking about a short-term plan for how to assist residents in Housatonic to sort of cope with the water situation. So we've got a long-term plan, and I know right now it's not the short-term plan moment, but I just hope we can consider something. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. I absolutely agree. So thank you.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second, Ann. We're trying to do something here.
And that was very well said.
Oh, thank you.
Once you said yours.
So Ann, that is something we will bring up after we hear the other report.
Yep. Thank you. I'm good.
Okay.
Hey, Ann.
Steve, we did hear what Ann said.
Okay, we did.
I can relay it if you like.
Okay. Yeah, it's on something.
And if I have permission, I can relay what you just said.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I don't think they can hear me yet. Steve, can you hear me? Garfield, you're muted.
Lee, could you text them?
Yeah, I'll as
No,
soon as
we're here. And we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, Steve.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm just going to relay what Ann had mentioned in Citizen Speak. I have her permission.
Yeah.
She just wanted us not to lose sight of the need for a short-term plan when it comes to the Housatonic Waterworks, which I absolutely agree and had planned to speak about after the second report. So she just wants this to keep a finger on the need for a short-term plan.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Ann. Let's see. Erica Milkey.
Okay, hi, Erica Milkey, 13 East Street, Great Barrington. I just wanted to, I am continually getting asked to unmute. I think it's because of that connection issue. Okay, I really wanted to follow up on the community trust policy. I got a little bit confused, the community trust policy committee. I got confused about where we were at with it. I know that like I would love an update on that. And also I wanted to follow up with something I only heard about when I was on the last select board meeting, which I was excited about, a proclamation against systemic racism. And I heard it in the context of the select board reevaluating what would be on the priority list for this current fiscal year. And I think that's exciting. And I just wanted to hear about what the next steps were. And if you need is action required from residents to move these two things along?
Okay, we'll come back at the next meeting on both of those.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm completely service here, so, okay. Anyone else out there? I can't see it at all. So. There are no other hands up. Okay, so let's move ahead to select board time. Garfield.
Nothing.
Garfield, do you have any?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Eric. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, just should have mentioned it in the beginning, but just wanted to say that we have a Housatonic Improvement Committee meeting on July 15th at 6:30. We can Zoom in, get information on the town, and then it's also going to be held at the Great Barrington Fire Station.
Thank you very much.
Nothing.
Lee, do you have anything?
Just to let you know that the CPC is planning a meeting on August 3rd at 5 p.m. to discuss the CPA plan for the coming year.
Thank you very much. I have nothing. Any media time? I see no hands raised. So this meeting is adjourned by unanimous consent before we lose everyone.
Bye.